fellow romance readers, I'm Amy.
And I'm Sarah, and this is Post-Book Depression. You know that feeling you get when you finish a good book that you didn't want to end?
Have you finished a book and just weren't ready to move on from the story and its beloved characters? You find yourself needing just a little more? This multi-trope romance podcast gives you the opportunity to dig deeper with us into books we love as we discuss all the reasons we can't move on.
Feeling chatty? You can continue the conversation with us on Instagram at Post-Book Depression Podcast or on Facebook in our Post-Book Depression discussion group.
We would be so grateful if you would subscribe to our podcast and take a moment to leave a review.
Are you ready? Let's discuss.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Amy.
And I'm Sarah, and today we're going to be discussing Where the Grass Grows Blue by Hope Gibbs.
The first few minutes we're going to do a brief review of this story without any spoilers. Then we are going to shift into a deeper book discussion. It's going to include lots of spoilers, but don't worry, we will let you know before we do shift into that deeper book discussion.
That's right. So before we shift over, Amy, tell us a little bit about the story.
A woman has to face her long-lost childhood love when she is forced to return to her small hometown to deal with her grandmother's estate. This dual timeline second chance story has heartache, swoon-worthy moments, and forgiveness. Sarah, what did you think about Where the Grass Grows Blue?
This story it's one of those stories that you are completely not prepared for. I wasn't expecting the story to fall into my lap and love it as much as I did.
Okay.
I was just kind of sad. This is one of those really missed opportunity things, I guess.
What do you mean?
Well, the way the second chance romance is, and I know every second chance romance, there's like a kind of a missed opportunity. I don't know. I just feel like if things had happened differently, you know,
for the characters, you mean?
you
okay,
wonder.
yes, I agree with that.
You wonder what could have been, and this one just really tugged at my heartstrings more than some other second chance romances. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. When you said misconnections, I was thinking between you and the story.
So
no.
Characters,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
agree
I
with
fully
that.
connected with this story.
Absolutely agree with that. And because we have the dual timeline in this one, I found myself really rooting for them in the present timeline, and then really my heart was breaking for them in the past timeline. So there's a lot to this story.
And there's a lot of there's moments that the characters face that are so just so sad.
They have to overcome a lot.
They do, but it's so worth it.
Absolutely.
It's such an incredible story.
It is. All right, let's get into those ratings.
Angst. All of that being said, I only rated it a 1.
Okay, I did 2.5.
Okay.
And I will say, the past timeline is really where it's at. I mean, they really struggle a lot. It's not heavy. I can probably bump that down. I won't, because I don't do that, but it is high. 2.5
and I could
high.
bump it up. And I do that.
Yes, you do.
But I won't.
We'll just
because
leave it,
I just didn't feel... It's not that there's not angsty components, but it's, compared to somewhere you're just like,
there's some heaviness to
there's
the
a heavy
past.
tone, for sure.
Yeah. All right, humor.
0.25.
Oh, I was way higher than you.
Really?
Yeah, I did 1.75. When I was going back through my notes, I had LOL next to a lot more than I thought. Like, when I think of this story as a whole, it is not funny to me.
Right.
But when I went back and looked at some of my notes, because I take very detailed plot notes, and I had smiley faces and laugh out loud through a lot, which we can talk a little bit more in the deeper discussion.
We will. We totally will.
Spiciness.
0.
Okay, I gave it 0.75, and I thought, you know what? That's pretty generous.
Really?
Yeah, it was more just like the tension in the present timeline.
Okay.
It's all off page. It's definitely off page. The banter.
Yeah.
The tension. It's fine.
I gave it 0. Not because there's not connection. We have a lot to discuss.
All right, tears. Let's see where you land on this one.
I gave it a 1.5.
Okay, I did 1.75.
I thought it was really...
No tears for me. Just some heavy situations.
I did. I did cry.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Cried.
You do that.
Yeah, I do. I'm a major weeper.
Yes, you are. All right, overall.
Overall, it was a 4.25.
Me too.
I love this story. Wait, yours was a 4.25?
Yes.
See? We know what we're doing. I think certain books just hit us at certain moments, and sometimes we feel different emotions and feelings.
I will say, I listened to the audiobook of this one, and I really feel like that enhanced the story for me. The characters... their accents in this story and just kind of just the overall, the feel of the audiobook really enhanced the story for me. So if you're into audiobooks, definitely check this one out. It's a very engaging story.
I agree with that. I started off reading it, and then I switched to the audio briefly, and then I enjoyed that so much because of the accents, and just the narrators did a phenomenal job that I finished it out that way, and I loved it.
I couldn't put the story down. It was so good.
Same.
That concludes the spoiler-free quick review of the story. Now we're going to shift into a deeper book discussion that's going to include lots of spoilers. So if you haven't read this story, please go check it out and then come back and join us on this deeper discussion. Then we would love to connect with you on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Postbook Depression Podcast, on Facebook in our Postbook Depression discussion group, and you can also email us at postbookdepressionpodcast@gmail.com. The opening scene with Penny and Tiffany's. Ooh, friend, this was a doozy.
This made me physically sick to my stomach.
She's just there to pick up some jewelry, and she gets a bomb dropped on her. Let's talk about the scene.
I can't imagine going in and getting your ring cleaned, and the second the lady said, "Oh, your bracelet," and she kind of stops and thinks, "What?"
They realize in the same moment that she's messed up. Ooh.
Oh, could you imagine being the saleswoman that just basically announced, "Hey, your husband's cheating on you"? I didn't like it. I was not comfortable with this. And I read the little blurb for the story. So it's like,
Yeah.
what's coming, but you know how I get with these
Yes.
affair stories. They just,
They do
Didn't
something
like it.
to you.
They do.
We learn about Teddy's affair immediately.
Uh-huh.
She goes home. They address it. He's moving on with someone much younger.
Packing his car when she pulls up.
Yes, he is.
Because he already knows.
Ugh.
I did not love his response to her when he tries to shut her down. He doesn't want to talk about, can we not do this? You know, that whole thing. I thought, if you're going to cheat on your wife and then leave her, you need to man up and have a conversation. You need to look her in the face and say, this is what I did. This is what I'm doing. Don't sit there and try to be put out with her because she's trying to figure out what's happening. That really didn't settle. And then the audacity that he had to say that they wanted to wait till Sammy was in school. Amy, he's 2 or 3.
I know. This
So
was
you're going to wait till he's
such
5?
an ick for me. The manipulation that he was pulling over her because he has status, he has wealth, and he's holding this over her. The fact that she couldn't get a job until he was in school, I thought, what in the world is happening? Just the manipulation of this guy was so much ick for me. I was so livid.
I thought, the man kind of did you a favor. But I did feel like
But I felt bad for her.
I felt so bad.
She didn't feel like she had any power to do anything. And on top of that, he's taken the kid to Africa. What?
On top of that, she got his mistress her job.
Oh my goodness. I know.
Because she's a 21-year-old Pilates instructor that she got a job at the club. I felt so dirty. I thought to myself, I can never do another Pilates exercise again without thinking of this story. Ever. No, it was one of those, it was so cliche, the type of affair that a man's going to have when he's in his,
midlife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not midlife. He's only like 36.
That's
2 years younger than me, Amy. I am not midlife.
40s is like midlife.
Oh, shut your mouth. Moving
I'm
on.
older than you, friend.
I know. I'm still young. Okay.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
It's in the midst of this time in her life that she learns about Ruby Ray, her grandmother, who has passed away.
Same week.
So tragic. But she does take this opportunity because he's taking Sammy to Africa for 3 weeks. Her friend has encouraged her, why don't you go ahead and take this opportunity to go down and handle things in Kentucky? And we get, in her conversation with Teddy when they're breaking up, we get a glimpse into the fact that there is someone from her past that has held a piece of her heart because he makes the statement, I never really fully had your heart.
I know, which there was one side of me, okay, devil's advocate. There was one part of me where you sit there and you think, if the story was reversed. Now, please understand, I'm not justifying the affair. But can you imagine being the other person that is so in love with somebody that, but you know that you don't fully have their heart. However, I don't think that was the case with Teddy.
Yeah.
I don't think that he was just,
I think
she's
he
the
was
one
just
for
throwing
me
that
and
around.
completely devastated because he kind of had a reputation for cheating.
Yeah.
So he's a dirty dog. We don't like Teddy.
Yes, he is. So she makes the decision to go to Kentucky where this secret love from her past lives. And I just, in this moment, cannot wait to meet this man.
I know. I'm so excited.
Let's spend some time talking about Penny's past. There's a lot to unpack here, but let's just take a few moments and really dig into her past. There's a lot that we want to chat about in this conversation. Let's start off. We mentioned Ruby Ray. She's her grandmother. We know that her mother has a really bad reputation for sleeping around. They're in a small town. This is a gossipy small town at that. So we have her mom's reputation for sleeping around, and then her dad, the town doesn't know really that he's abusive, but that is a part of her past. He's very abusive towards her family, and Ruby Ray's really the only one that knows, that cares about that. And so let's just unpack Penny's past.
She has a lot. So from a young age, she has 3 older siblings, which we learned very early on when her grandma passes. She's the final one because all 3 of her older siblings have passed away.
Which was so tragic in itself.
I know. Cystic
I
fibrosis.
cannot imagine.
And then 2 other things that her twin sisters had health issues in their 20s. Wow. So that was a lot to just kind of deal with this character. But she has a strong bond with her grandmother, but you mentioned her dad's abuse and her mom's reputation, and at the time we kind of get the flashback to the past when Penny is young. There's this pageant. Her mom wants to put her in this pageant. Her dad seems to be doing well because he's also a drunk, which the town does know.
Yes, they do.
And we have to make mention that his best friend is a police officer of some sort, so
His
he's not...
sins get overlooked, for sure.
Yes, 100%. It's at this pageant. Some things happen right before that he finds out his wife has been messing around, and he kind of goes off on this bender and is violent with the mom and turns a violent hand towards Penny. She's really young. How old was she? She was like 5?
Yeah, she was pretty young.
So you have this young girl that from that period on, she is her dad's punching bag. It is mentioned at one point that I don't think he ever really punched her where people could physically see it.
Correct, yeah.
It isn't until much later that he violently attacks her.
I want to talk about the pageant scene a little bit. It sets up the scene where she does this pageant. She ends up going into it, and she's not a small girl. And there's an expectation on pageants just in general for girls that do this to be of a certain build and things like that. And this is where it starts her relationship with food a little bit and her
Controlling her weight.
Yes. And she does make this statement. Her inner dialogue tells us that she's not going to allow someone to call her heavy or fat or whatever the word was ever again. And so we start to kind of understand that she's going to have some eating issues moving forward.
Right. Definitely more conscientious of her weight. Develops a very major addiction really to running that I kind of felt like even though she had a lot of talent with her running, it was not a healthy relationship.
I agree.
At all, in my personal opinion, just based upon her reasonings behind running. 1, to maintain her weight, but 2, also as a coping mechanism. And it's just really kind of sad. Her mom's reputation also kind of goes a little bit further from just being known for sleeping around because ultimately her mom and dad divorced. But her mom is married so many times.
Yes.
So many times. And unfortunately, Penny's siblings are a little bit older. They're gone. She's kind of young, and it's just kind of her and her mom a lot.
I want to talk a little bit, since we are in her past, about because of the things that she's having to deal with in this small town, this carries over into school, and she gets bullied a lot.
Yeah.
There's a mean girl, Emily, who really heads up a lot of the bullying. She spreads lies about her. There was the lice incident. She throws verbal attacks at her about her mom. and really just embarrasses her on a repetitive basis. She gets the cheerleading squad to come in alongside her, even though some of them don't really believe her and want to side with Penny. They don't, because they don't want to be bullied themselves.
Right.
All of these scenes with Emily just makes me so sick.
She was vicious.
Yes, she was.
Absolutely vicious. And her character, in my opinion, had no redeeming qualities. Now, I know that there are parts of the story where the author tries to let us know that there were some moments that she was not like that, but the character that we witness and that we see, I really couldn't buy it. And yeah, I just didn't feel like we never get to a point where we see any of her redeeming qualities.
No, she's the enemy
through the whole
thing. We learn that she likes Bradley. She gets jealous of Penny and Bradley's relationship as they're growing up. Her mom cleans his house, and that's how they kind of start to have a friendship. They spend time together and really start to just form a bond together that grows. And I think Emily was jealous of that when she learned about it.
Right.
Let's jump back to the present timeline with Penny returning to Kentucky. And she's trying to set herself up for success in this house with some munchies and things. She goes to the market to get some things for this house. And let me just say, the first situation that is a little bit comical that lends to my, humor rating was the kettle corn.
Yes. Okay. I'll give it. That's a part of my 0.25.
So she's buying this kettle corn in the line. She's been looking forward to it. We mentioned that she has this unhealthy obsession with food and lack thereof, but while she's in Kentucky, she's allowing her some extra snacks and things that she wants to eat, some comforts from home, I guess. And so she buys a bag of this kettle corn. She's standing in line checking out, and lo and behold, the cashier is the one that made it that day, which is kind of the joke of the town.
Yeah, don't buy it on the second Saturday. Everybody knows that.
And she didn't. She didn't know that. So she bites it and breaks a piece of her tooth, Sarah. Ouch.
Okay, I just was kind of having that second-hand embarrassment. Could you just imagine standing in this small town grocery store and you're checking out and you break a tooth that people can hear it?
That hurts me. That hurts me so bad.
It's just awkward. And you're trying to go unnoticed, too. You're just wanting to do a quick little pit stop. I mean, she didn't even remember that she went to school with this guy. She's trying to figure out, who am I talking to? So
he runs and grabs, he knows Bradley is there. He runs and grabs Bradley, and we learn that he is a dentist. And so this is their first reunion since she's been back. And he is inviting her to the dentist office next door, a couple doors down, so he can help her fix her tooth.
I love how she's like, I'm good. It's okay. I'll be okay. No, I'm good. It's fine. I'll just take some ibuprofen, you know? Like, it's no big deal.
See, it is funny. Thank you very much.
Funny. I didn't say there was no humor.
I mean, you alluded to that.
Okay.
So he fixes up her tooth. I love the scene where he asks if she wants the gas.
I know.
And she says no, and then they start talking about stuff, and he asks her again, do you want the gas now? And she definitely agrees to do that. When she goes to pay her bill, he tells her there's no charge. In return, he would like to take her out to dinner as payment.
Ooh.
I know. I'm here for it.
He was working fast.
Which brings me to my next moment of comedy here. He shows up to pick her up for this dinner. First of all, swoon-worthy moment. She opens the door in blue, and he says, I always did love you in blue.
Oh.
Loved that. But he is holding flowers that he stole from her yard, and he takes wine on their picnic that he stole from her cupboard. Now, to be fair, he did it with good intentions because she likes expensive wine.
Right.
And they didn't have it there, so he was planning ahead. I did like that. But I laughed in that scene where he got her flowers. In the time that she's working, we know that she's there to clean out her grandma's house in order to sell it. In that time, her and Bradley are spending more time together. They're going on some dates. They're really starting to build their friendship up a little bit more. There's obvious chemistry there that they're playing on as well. They start to have some romantic encounters. I loved the scene where the friends call and ask, or the friends are there and they ask if they slept together, and they said no because they forgot protection. And you've got these two adults that that were in the heat of the moment, and they couldn't do anything about that.
Which was very funny to me because I was so confused. I was like, wait, is this a fade to black?
I thought so too.
So I legit was like, well, clearly, because she wakes up in bed. I mean, I'm thinking she's...
I thought they'd done the deed.
I did too.
Yep.
And I was so confused. And when she kept denying it, I was like, you little hussy. You are lying through your teeth. But yeah, no, they didn't. When she explained it, she's like, well, I haven't really been. And he, so anyway, it was just like, that whole conversation was comical. That's a funny one.
Yes.
And her friend is funny.
Yes, I do like her friend. Well, and then after they spend the night together, she shows up in his t-shirt, and then there's the little girl, the friend's daughter that's there, the aunt or cousin or somebody's daughter that's there, and she's like, why are you here with Bradley in his shirt?
Yeah, she was funny. No filter, 7-year-olds.
Oh, yeah. So they, they're building this relationship, the chemistry, all of that. I want to shift over to the part where she's selling the house. She's here in this small town community. She goes, her cousin does tell her, because her cousin comes over to help, and she has a relationship with this cousin, and he tells her that she has to go to church the next morning because they've organized a potluck.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
If you're from the South, it's a big deal.
Yes. I loved the scene where she shows up to church. You've got the smokers that go out.
I know.
Then she starts breaking down all the casseroles and the salads. And it's not green lettuce salads, Sarah. It's all the, like pasta salads and the fruit salads. What's that marshmallow salad?
Fluff. So they called it, I think she called it strawberry fluff or something. Okay. And that was just not right to me because my grandma made orange fluff.
Okay.
And it's delicious.
It was always pistachio fluff.
See, no. We didn't do pistachio.
As a kid,
the green?
I hated that. Yes.
Ew,
Nobody ever ate it.
Okay, see, mine was delicious because it was like Cool Whip with like orange. Anyway, I don't want to break down the recipe. Just DM me if you want it. It's incredible. It's amazing. I love it.
So I love that she's going down.
I did too.
The whole potluck situation and how it is in the South. That also made me laugh. Thank you very much.
It made me laugh. And I'm going to tell you, this is where my 0.25 really reigns in. Because the best line in this story to me is the one where the lady who's just this gossipy, she said, I heard you're this and I heard you're that. And she said, I heard you're a Methodist. And she said, just remember, it was John the Baptist that baptized Jesus, not John the Methodist. Amy, I lost it. I was rolling so hard because I could just see this like church full of people, this potluck, and these judgy people. You're living your life this way and you're living your life that way. These just gossipy old ladies.
The epitome of small town.
Absolutely. Gossip. I could see my grandparents' church when I was a kid, and I'm talking country bumpkin, the whole potluck thing, except for we didn't have the strawberry fluff, we had the orange fluff. But that line, I was cracking up. I was like, that's the best line. That lady was so funny.
We've mentioned that she's here to sell her house, and a part of that are these bully aunts that she has. Whew. They're coming, they're making a scene. They want the inheritance. They're there to kind of get their due, they say. They think they are owed everything in this house, and it's really Penny who's inherited everything in the will, but she's gonna, leave most of that to them. And so we have these bully aunts. They are there all the time pestering her as they're cleaning out the house, all that stuff. Well, one of the times when she was out with Bradley, I don't recall if she was on a date or where they were, but they weren't at the house. And when she returns, her aunt lets it slip that she has missed her call from her sons that are in Africa. And also that she had a little conversation with Teddy, which is very frustrating. I was so frustrated on Penny's behalf in this moment because a lot of misinformation was construed to Teddy, and he's formed an opinion about what's happening back here. This leads to Teddy making false accusations and requesting a custody. One of the scenes that was also funny that led to this was the scene where they went skinny dipping in the pool and got the police called on them.
Yes. That old lady was really funny when she's like, is it those teenagers?
And I'm going to tell Bradley about this because
I know. And he's the one in there.
He's the chair of the
that was a funny scene.
Club.
But it was kind of sad because it does get back to Teddy that she was arrested, and she was not arrested.
Correct.
He accuses her of being unfit or unstable.
Let's back up and talk a little bit about Penny and Bradley's relationship. Mm-hmm. There's one scene from the past that I want to just briefly talk on, and then we'll shift back to the present and what's happening. The past scene, they're supposed to go to prom together. And in the present, there's a scar on her lip when he's working on her in the dentist chair that he makes note of and whispers to her that you can barely see it. We finally get that scene and learn that that's a scene she's supposed to go to prom, so she goes and buys a dress. Well, she tries to go,
buy a dress.
But her dad has stolen all of her money, and that was the scene where he beats her up. Her dad beats her up so badly. Bradley comes. She was supposed to meet Bradley to do a study session, and when she doesn't come, he gets worried about her and actually finds her at the home, and she's been severely beaten. And because her dad is in with the cops and has a relationship with them, they know they can't call the cops.
Right. Well, and she shot at him.
Yes, she pulls a gun, shoots at him, and tells him, if you ever touch me again, I will hit you on purpose.
Right.
So they have to make up a whole scenario of what has happened to explain her injuries. I do really appreciate the nurse who tended to her in the hospital and recognize that that's not what happened.
Right.
And so she does get treatment in the hospital, even though that's not really what happened. As she falls down the ravine. She keeps making reference to July 4th in the past, and we don't really know what has happened. We just know that they broke up for good on July 4th. So I want to jump to the present timeline. They're on a date at his house, and she has to use the restroom, and so she goes upstairs. She can't remember where the bathroom was, and so she happens to go into one of the bedrooms, which is one of his daughters. He has 2 daughters, which we haven't mentioned yet. And she notices a picture in that room. Friend, let's talk about this scene where we discover what's happening.
I suspected that he married Emily.
Did you? I did not.
I did. Throughout the whole thing, I thought he married her bully. I just don't know why. So I picked up very early on that was kind of where it was leading.
I did not, and I was so livid with him.
I was livid with him when I got confirmation because I needed to know why. Why did you? And then I very quickly figured out the why of that as well. But he wants to explain to her.
Yeah.
Because she, at that point, feels this self-preservation of needing to protect herself. He broke her heart once. And she doesn't know that she can allow him to do that again. And he wants to...
Yeah, she says, I can't allow you in for a second time. And he says, I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And that is just so heartbreaking. But when they finally sat down to have the conversation of what happened, there's one side of me that wants to say, you know, he was a young kid. He made a mistake. But then there's also that side of me that's so unbelievably disgusted with his choice and the repercussions that it had that... I don't know, friend. Like, there's a part of me that you want to root for Penny and Bradley because they deserve to be happy, and he's loved her forever since they were young teenagers. There's also another part of me that's like, you don't get Penny. But I guess we should probably tell what happened.
Yeah, so it's after they go to college. Well, she shuts him out. We don't know what happened, but... On the 4th of July, this is the night that they have decided they're going to take their relationship to the next level of intimacy. But just before they get to that point, she has second thoughts and changes her mind.
Right, because of her mom's reputation. She never wanted to be like her mom.
Yes.
And that's what she's afraid is going to happen if...
So they kind of,
accusations.
Yes, so they kind of part ways in that moment out of frustration. He ends up going to a party and drinks a lot. The cops were called, and so he just got into the closest car, and it happened to be the same one that Emily was in. And one thing led to another. They slept with each other. And he finds out that she is pregnant. They were both young, like you said, and their parents made them get married, which I never feel like that's the answer.
I don't either, but I had to stop and pause because the timeline of the story, you know, you have to think about when it was, where it's located, and kind of the expectations that people had on other people. Nowadays, I'm like, don't you dare.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a reason to get married. Let's pump those brakes, shall we?
So he was feeling guilty about that and not returning her calls, even though she tried to reach out to him. She ends up going to college without ever really getting a goodbye from him. And it's her cousin that actually is the one that delivers.
Because he's roommates with him.
Yeah.
Woo.
That's
and it's like the cousin she's closest to. Awkward.
So he's the one that delivers the news. He has a letter from Bradley, which she chooses not to read. And they go their separate ways. So there was some hurt, obviously hurt between them. Things did not end well in the past for them. And so the fact that he married her and had 2 kids, not 1, but 2.
But we have to say why he had 2.
Yes.
Because he explains to her he did not touch Emily at all in their first few years of marriage. He made it known that he did not love her at all.
Yeah.
But he does say she was a really great mom.
Yes.
And he could see glimpses of the Emily that he was friends with before she became this awful bully as a teenager. It isn't until he comes to a funeral of one of her family members to kind of be there for her from a distance that he sees she is married.
Yes.
That he ends up having another child with Emily because he thinks she's moved on.
Yes.
So it's really kind of heartbreaking because there's just all these, I don't know. I just did. And in that point, I was kind of frustrated with Bradley as well because I thought you had another baby with somebody that you didn't even like, but he decides he's going to try to be a good husband.
This is a really good, this is the perfect example. You mentioned the misconnections, and this really sums up that whole misconnections part of the story.
Yeah.
Because they obviously have chemistry, they love each other, and it's just, they just keep missing each other.
I know.
And making these decisions based on what's happening in the present, and it's sad.
It's one of those stories that it's so tragic that you think one decision defines the rest of your life. You hate what your life, not that he doesn't love his girls. He is all about his girls. He's obsessed with his girls. I do have to say also it is kind of tragic because we know that Emily died in a car wreck.
Yes.
However, we have to point out they were getting separated.
Yeah.
And she had been having an affair and was really in love with the guy she was having an affair with and died before all of that stuff became finalized. And he and the guy she was having the affair with made the decision to not let anybody know because they didn't want to tarnish the reputation and didn't want his girls to experience that.
That was very kind of them.
It was, but it was also kind of icky too because then he says the guy went back to his wife.
Oh,
and I was
yeah.
like, what's with the affairs left and right? Oh my goodness, walking statistics. Jeez. Anyway, so yeah, it does kind of make you feel a little bit better though. It's like, okay, he never loved her. If that was real life, I would be super heartbroken for Emily.
Yeah.
Regardless of how mean she was.
Well, it did say she, had some depression and things like that. So
wouldn't you?
Well, yeah. Yes.
So yeah, I think Emily just needed some therapy. Maybe she's a really great person, but she just got stuck in I'm a teenager and I don't know what I want to be. I don't know. Moving on. This isn't about Emily. This is about Penny and Bradley. Let's focus on the love story.
I want to shift back to Teddy's accusations and requesting custody and all of that, because this is kind of what leads to her to break up with Bradley for a second time.
Right.
She has a moment of panic. We know that she has this coping mechanism of running, and she works to do that when this happens between her and Teddy.
I don't fault her for this. And if I'm being completely honest, he just thinks, well, it'll be okay. And I'm thinking, first of all, you've already had to acknowledge the long distance thing that's happening. You guys are in 2 different states.
I was really wondering how that was going to work out.
I was too. I'm like, you're in
And with
Kentucky
kids
and you have a business.
of all
She's
ages.
in Atlanta. You guys have kids. This is very like, how's this going to work? Which I loved the ending for because we don't need all the details. We don't get them all and we don't need them.
Yes.
But
yes.
I did not love that it was just like, it'll be okay, and that he just kind of felt like, because I did feel like her reaction is a natural, genuine reaction. Did you feel that way?
Yes, I did. And you talked about how we don't get all the details. I actually really liked that about this story, that it's left open-ended and we don't know what happens. We don't get those. I know. We very rarely get a book that is left open-ended like this, and I loved it.
I did too. I like that we don't know where they end up.
Yes.
We just know that they're supposed to be together, but we don't know where they're going to be. But anyway, I just felt like during the breakup, I related to how she responded because if it were me, there's no way I would give up my children for somebody that I was dating. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I just couldn't do that. I kind of understood her reaction, regardless of how extreme it may have been.
I agree. She's getting the house ready for sale, and there's a comment made about the safe that she didn't know about. And so she finally gets to the safe, and inside is a letter from Ruby Ray.
This letter is so incredible.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about it.
I love that her grandma acknowledges that she knew what happened, and she apologizes for not stepping in, which that was a frustration I did have with Ruby Ray.
She never stepped in.
That she never once stepped in when she knew her son was abusing her granddaughter.
Yeah.
That was a character flaw that I couldn't get around.
Agree.
But I love in there she talks about how she's always had to fight her whole life. I don't know. It just felt like she gave her this incredible advice that she recognizes in that moment. What am I doing? I need to fight for Bradley.
Yeah.
I need to make this work, and I will figure everything out with my kids and it will be fine. And she immediately is just rushing over to Bradley's, but he's not there.
He's not there. He's not there, and this is the time where she has to go meet her friends in Florida. Mm-hmm. She's run out of time, and lo and behold, let's do the scene. Let's talk about this scene.
He's there.
He is.
She can't get a hold of him. His assistant, relays kind of a message. She's leaving all these messages, which is just making me I was in agony. I was, Bradley, answer the phone. But he's there, and he's wanting to fight for her, and the girlfriends kind of surrender their trip so that they can have a trip together. And we get this just incredible feeling of it's going to be okay and it's going to work out, and they're going to finally be together after all this time, which is incredible. And then it jumps to later on.
Yes.
And this is the best.
This
First of all, costume party.
I'm here for it.
We're so here for that. We love a costume party.
By the way, she goes as Holly Golightly. I
love it.
I dressed as Holly Golightly for Halloween one year.
Oh.
I loved it. I love Audrey Hepburn so much.
I do too. And I love that I love what it's kind of representing.
Oh, yes.
That she goes in dressed as her character from Breakfast at Tiffany's. I love the reaction of her ex seeing her. I'm like, yes, stick it to the man.
Yes.
It is kind of the ultimate revenge. It was just a perfect moment. And we find out that Penny and Bradley, they're together, however that may look in the future. We learn that Teddy's getting a divorce.
And he has withdrawn
the custody. Yes. So it's just all those happy feelings that even though we don't get what actually transpires for them to be together, we know that they end up being together.
Absolutely.
And I loved that closure.
Me too.
It was amazing. That wraps up our discussion of Where the Grass Grows Blue. We hope you enjoyed it and want to continue the discussion with us. You can hit us up on Instagram at Postbook Depression Podcast or on our Facebook page and our Postbook Depression discussion group. You can also email us at postbookdepressionpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, keep reading.